Welcome to The Right Focus, a podcast for writers, newbies and veterans, and everyone in between. We're hosted by M.A. Lee with the assistance of Remy Black and Edie Rooms, all from Writers Inc. books. Our focus is productivity, process, craft, and tools. Each episode lasts as long as it takes to fix a quick dinner, drive a short commute, or take a brisk walk. Resources and links are in the show notes. Visit us at therightfocus.blogspot.com. Now, on to this week's episode. Monsters of all sorts inhabit literature, for they crowd into people's consciousness whenever we face trials and tribulations. And in the nonfiction world, as we encounter horrible behavior, we reach into literature for a comparison that will describe this real monster that is overtaking us. The unnatural monsters, gory and terrifying, gorging themselves without mercy or conscience, these are our nightmares, rarely encountered. The deceptive monsters, the ones that camouflage who and what they are, still gorging themselves, relishing each victim, these inhabit our everyday lives. We have names for them: psychopath, sociopath, narcissist, BPD. We know about them. We should be wary of them, but we still find ourselves caught in their devastating traps even after we finally recognize them. Something romanticized inside us, or a martyr complex, poor me, or even broken apathy, these keep us trapped as prey for these monsters. Only when we are burned enough and wounded enough do we manage to escape, scarred for all future encounters with people who are not monsters. We become frustrated with fictional characters who stay too long with such deceptive monsters, yet we know it happens in real life. These deceptive monsters are alluring, beautiful enticements that we can't quite let go. And that unwillingness to escape is truly the monstrous behavior. One of the best known examples of the beautiful deceptive monster in English literature is another type of siren, another femme fatale, John Keats' La Belle Dame sans Merci, the beautiful lady without mercy. She has captured artists' imaginations since publication in 1819, with vibrant paintings by pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood artists John William Waterhouse, Henry Maynell Ream, and Arthur Hughes. Waterhouse is more evocative, with the woman sitting on fertile green ground in a wildwood, feet bare. She enwraps a knight and draws him into a kiss with her long hair. I prefer Frank Dixie's interpretation. The unhelmeted knight has dismounted and ignores his sword. The lady is now mounted on his horse. She bends down for a kiss, and his enchantment is so absolute, his arms are open wide, amazed at the approach of a kiss from such a beautiful lady. See the show notes for links to a wiki page that has these most famous paintings. Here we are at 2 tips for writers, and we haven't reached the poem itself. Tip 1. Everything we just said about deceptive monsters applies not only to fiction but also nonfiction. Writers who tackle the lying monsters hiding in our everyday world. That's the reason crime and detective shows like Vera and The Mentalist have such popularity. The femme fatale trope is rich with many iterations. We see an easy connection to the speculative fiction and mystery genres. The femme fatale need not be the antagonist. She could be a minion of the antagonist or an unexpected villain that our protagonist encounters. In mystery, the Black Widow offers a tricky antagonist to be discovered and to be caught. A whole series could be written with one femme fatale, or several novels, or novellas, or short stories. Reader magnets are sometimes hard to develop. I have a personal distaste for magnets that are merely character description. However, I just realized this idea of a femme fatale reader magnet would work with many of my novels. I've been struggling with a story idea to add to a completed novel. This can be an addition to that story. What do women fear? The loss of their husband's desire. And when that femme fatale is dangerous, oh my, this may be more than a short story. Lost leaders help draw readers into a series, offering a starting point. The story needs to be complete on its own. Excerpts don't really work as lost leaders. For nonfiction, the obvious use is to write true crime on a femme fatale. Turn your head a little sideways and use the femme fatale as a metaphor for an expose on a grifter or a scammer or fraudulent business. Keep to the facts so you don't become a target. Tip 2. Painters often take inspiration from writers. Writers can take inspiration from artwork, paintings that speak to us, like Waterhouse or Rossetti, N.C. Wyeth, Hopper. Paintings that create scenes or just offer a rich setting for description. These can inspire our own writing. We often turn to stock photos. We can also turn to artwork. La Madame sans Merci is about a fairy who seduces a knight with her song and then with her eyes. Once she has him ensnared, she leaves him still trapped, unable to escape, or unwilling, as if she sucked the marrow of self-volition from his very bones. 12 stanzas of 4 lines each, with an ABCB rhyme scheme, 4 stanzas to the first speaker, 8 stanzas to our second, a knight, which is almost like the dialogue in a ballad. The original 1819 poem has an 1820 revision. Let's look at the difference in the 2 first stanzas. The original, "Oh, what can ail thee, knight at arms, alone and palely loitering? The sedge has withered from the lake, and no birds sing." And the revised 1820 version, "Ah, what can ail thee, wretched wight, alone and palely loitering? The sedge is withered from the lake, and no birds sing." We have barely any change. Knight at arms becomes wretched wight, and we have a tense change, past to present. The 1820 wretched wight is more evocative. A wight simply means a living being as a noun, W-I-G-H-T, with the archaic adjective of valiant, stalwart. It's a richer phrase than knight at arms, stronger words for us, one of those 4 requirements of song. Remember the others: clear communication, heartfelt emotion, and powerful imagery, which the next 2 stanzas provide. Ah, what can ail thee, wretched wight, so haggard and so woebegone? The squirrel's granary is full, and the harvest is done. I see a lily on thy brow, with anguish moist and fever dew, and on thy cheek a fading rose fast withereth too. Haggard and woebegone, while in nature the harvest is done. Even the squirrel's granary is full. The fairy has stocked her storehouse just as the squirrel has. Hers, though, is a valiant knight's, proudly on their quest, now seduced away and belonging to her. The lily is a funeral flower, and the fading rose increases the idea of approaching death. Now the knight speaks, and we have a hint of the ballad dialogue, question and answer. The knight says, "I met a lady in the meads, full beautiful, a fairy's child. Her hair was long, her foot was light, and her eyes were wild. I set her on my pacing steed, and nothing else saw all day long, for sideways would she lean and sing a fairy's song. I made a garland for her head, and bracelets too, and fragrant zone. She looked at me as she did love, and made sweet moan. She found me roots of relish sweet, and honey wild, and manna dew. And sure in language strange she said, I love thee true. She took me to her elfin grot, and there she gazed inside deep, and there I shut her wild sad eyes, so kissed to sleep. Wild eyes and a fairy song, a flowery crown and bracelets and girdle, which he wove for her, as she wove a seductive entanglement around him. She fed him sweet roots and wild honey and manna, like the nectar and ambrosia, the food of the gods. He claims that he seduced her in her elfin grot, a cave. But he isn't the seducer. She is. He is in delusion. But he dreams the truth, which we have in the last stanzas. And there we slumbered on the moss, and there I dreamed, woe betide, the latest dream I ever dreamed on the cold hillside. I saw pale kings and princes too, pale warriors, death pale were they all, who cried, La belle dame sans merci hath thee in thrall. I saw their starved lips in the gloom, with horrid warning gaped wide, and I awoke and found me here, on the cold hillside. And this is why I sojourn here, alone and palely loitering, though the sedge is withered from the lake, and no birds sing. Dreams present the truth when we are blinded to reality, which takes us to tip 4. When you want a character to have an epiphany, have them dream it. Craft your dream with rich symbols. King Arthur dreamed of a snake and falling into Abyssal Lake, which represents his traitorous son Modred and his death-like sleep guarded over by the Lady of the Lake and her fairy sisters. This knight sees men pale in death who cry warning, La belle dame sans merci hath thee in thrall. It's too late, though. He's caught. He cannot leave this death-cold hillside, alone and palely loitering, as winter descends around him. This is a poem of autumn's end, harvest over, squirrel finished with his nut gathering, fading roses. When the fairy finds him in the meadows, flowers grow, bees sing, the earth provides a feast. But autumn is now dying. The year is dying. And he is dying. For winter rapidly approaches. The night inhabits a cold hillside with sedge dying beside the lake, and the birds are gone, leaving not one note of their music. Tip 5 harks back to the clever use of the seasons and the year by Helen Hunt Jackson and Christina Rossetti. They celebrate the year, the season, the months. Here, Keats uses the dying year to double up the slow death happening to his valiant knight. We can use nature to foreshadow and to increase the power of events happening to our characters and to our stories. We often add descriptions of nature to place our readers. Intensify those descriptive tags of nature to echo your character's emotions or twist in the plot. Placing the story in a season welcomes a reader into a story or a poem or a blog or a memoir or an article or an expose. Using seasonal descriptive tags that take on symbolic meaning, that deepens the enrichment for the reader and helps the reader engage with the writing, becoming a participant as they unlock meaning that awakens the reader, and they are no longer dreaming and drifting through the writing, but anticipating and enjoying. Before we leave this episode, one of the poets I like for his cleverness, for his structural gymnastics, is e.e.cummings. He has his own La belle dame sans merci. Cummings is usually a tricky poet because he liked readers to puzzle out the meaning. So he would switch around punctuation and the grammatical structure within his poems. It was really work to figure them out. He received a complaint because of this. Someone whined, "You can't write a regular poem, can you?" And his answer is this poem, All in Green Went My Love Riding, which contains a clever trick that probably went over the head of the complainer. He uses imagery, alliteration, and repetition to great extent, with hidden symbolic meanings. the fertile green that his fairy wears as she rides in the hunt to kill deer. The lean hounds are the hounds of the fairy wild hunt. The horn at her hip, the bow at her belt, the famished arrows she shoots, and the green mountain, telling us that death occurs in springtime. The last line contains Cummings' twist, heart, the word we associate with deer, with the 4 tall stags, is spelled H-A-R-T. But the word in his line is H-E-A-R-T, for the heart of love. The seduced man, captured by his fairy love, betrayed to his death. All in green went my love riding on a great horse of gold into the silver dawn. 4 lean hounds crouched low and smiling, the merry deer ran before. Fleeter be they than dappled dreams, the swift, sweet deer, the red, rare deer. 4 red roebuck at a white water, the cruel bugle sang before. Horn at hip went my love riding, riding the echo down into the silver dawn. 4 lean hounds crouched low and smiling, the level meadows ran before. Softer be they than slippered sleep, the lean, lithe deer, the fleet-flown deer. 4 fleet does at a gold valley, the famished arrows sang before. Bow at belt went my love riding, riding the mountain down into the silver dawn. 4 lean hounds crouched low and smiling, the sheer peaks ran before. Paler be they than daunting death, the sleek, slim deer, the tall, tense deer. 4 tall stags at a green mountain, the lucky hunters sang before. All in green went my love riding, on a great horse of gold, and into the silver dawn. 4 lean hounds crouched low and smiling. My heart fell dead before. And that's tip 6. No idea like the femme fatale, like l'abandon sans merci, is copyrighted. Our final tip for the day. The form of the words, word after word, sentence after sentence, event after event, that is copyrighted. How many times have we seen fairy tales updated to a new form? Not copyrightable. War stories retold. Not copyrightable. Love stories rewritten to be happier, or an Austen romance given a new culture. Because the original is not copyrightable. The idea of the wild fairy, lovely yet cruel, merciless and alluring, is common, and we can write our own l'abandon sans merci, as Cummings did. Our writing can take poetic form or be a story, a true crime expose, or a diatribe against influencers who are also scammers. The base idea is available to all. Our creative spin is all that matters. Next time on A Search for a Story, look to fairy tales or poems of El Dorado and fairies or war stories, and tilt your head sideways to transform the base idea into your own story, your own interpretation. If nothing else, it's good practice. And still, we can write on. Every writer is after memorable writing, whatever will strengthen our words and ideas so they haunt our audience. We want our audience to return again and again to our writing, either to recapture that original impact or to puzzle out a question that wasn't answered, capture our audience, and they stay with our writing to the end, satisfy our audience, and they seek more of our writing. This is our goal. Win-win, us and them. Our series, Fall into Poetry, would seem to appeal only to poets, but that's a surface glance. We writers can learn from any writing style, poetry teaching fiction, dramas teaching nonfiction, any mix-up we can contemplate. Join the Write Focus all through autumn as we examine great poems that teach a multitude of lessons for all writers. Thanks for listening to The Right Focus, a podcast for writers at all levels, hosted by Emma Lee from Writers Inc. Books, assisted by Remy Black and Edie Runes. Our focus is productivity, process, craft, and tools. Music is licensed through Audio Jungle, called Background Music Loop. Its creator is Alexander Polishchuk, known on Audio Jungle as Plastic 3. The music comes in different iterations. Show notes and resource links for this and other episodes can be found at therightfocus.blogspot.com. Write to us at winkbooks@aol.com when you have questions, comments, and speculations. We will try to answer you as quickly as possible. By the way, we will not mine your email address. That's rude. If you find value in our content, share with your writing friends or write a review. We're small beans here without the advertising budget of the big peeps, and you can make a difference. And whatever occurs, write on.